Right, guys, we are looking here at question 5 in the book, and this question is all about calculating angles of a pie chart, drawing those angles into a pie chart, and then answering a number of different questions using that pie chart and other, I suppose, graphic displays like a line plot. Remember, pie charts are tend to be used for categorical data, but they can also be used for numerical data as well. Okay, so we can see here that we have numerical data. What we have here is the hours spent sleeping, so that's discrete. Okay, a discrete number, 9 hours spent sleeping. So the first thing anyway is working out the values here in front of us for her time spent sleeping. Okay, so let's see what they did. It says here that they got 9 over 24, a fraction. I wonder why they have that fraction there. Well, if you add up all the hours, you get 24 hours. So that's 9 out of 24. So 9 over 24. If we want to convert this into an angle, what you always do is you multiply by the total degrees of a circle, which is 360. So that's why they got multiplied by 360 and they got an answer of 135 degrees. So let's have a go here at a second one. Okay, so let's say for argument's sake, I want to do eating. Well, what you would do here is you would say, well, that's 1 out of how many hours, which is in this case 24. So that would be 1 over 24 and multiply by 360 degrees, and you'll get a value there as well. So you should get an answer there of 15 degrees when you work that out. Okay, I might actually do one of these with you, I suppose, on the whiteboard. So how about I do with friends? Okay, so what we have here is she has spent 7 hours with friends. Okay, at 7 again, I could, if I wanted to, I could put in the what units we're working with. So what I'm working with is 7 out of 24 hours. So this is hours. Okay, so hours. And what we have then next is um, the degrees of a circle. So there's 360 degrees. Okay, and we got a value of 105 degrees. Now you might have trouble here using your calculator for this, figuring out how to put this into your calculator. Well, there's two different ways of doing it. So on your calculator here, you will find a button here that kind of looks like this. Okay, on your Casio calculator, that'll allow you to put in fractions into your calculator. So when you click that button, okay, and the next thing then you is to click in 7. Okay, then you have to click the arrow button. Okay, so you have to click the down arrow. So remember, there's like a directional pad here on your calculator and has 4 kind of directions, and you click the down. Okay, and then you'll end up getting. So what's on my calculator right now is right. I have 7 has gone into the first box, and I want to type in 24 then. Okay, so I have 24 now, and I didn't. What I didn't end up doing then is I have to press this button, this arrow button again, and this time I have to pick this arrow, okay, to make sure that it works out and doesn't give me an error. And I'm going to click multiply 360 degrees, and I get 105 degrees then on my calculator. Okay, another way you can do that is you could simply write it as bracket. Okay, you could say, I know that that is 7 divided by, whoopsie, that's not very good, is it? 7 divided by, and it is 24 degrees, no, 24 hours rather. Okay, and you're going to multiply that by 360. Apologies for the awful writing. And you multiply by 360. So that'd be another way to work it out in your calculator, and you end up with the same value anyway. You get 105 degrees. Right, repeat that for every single one of these and you will get a value, okay? The next thing it says is to draw a pie chart. So I have attached a video here about how to draw this pie chart. You can see here I've worked out all the values for you, okay? And I explain how to input these values into a pie chart. It's something actually that would surprise me sometimes people that struggle with, but it's all there to explain it there for you anyway. Right, moving on to part C. It says, what percentage of the time did Jessica spend sleeping? Right. What tends to happen here is people tend to get so focused in with the angles that they forget about the basic ways we work through these questions. So what percentage of the time did Jessica spend sleeping? Let's go back up here and figure out how many hours did she spend sleeping? 9. Okay, she said 9 hours sleeping. 9. Again, so that's time. And she spent 9 out of 24 hours sleeping. Okay, and if I want that as a percentage, how do I work it out? Well, obviously you multiply by 100 over 1. That's how you always turn a fraction into percentage, and we get a value there of 37.5%. Okay, we could round that to 38% if you'd want, but that 37.5, I think I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, so that answers part C. The next thing then is part D. This is a bit of a tricky one here. If all times were rounded to the nearest hour, that's okay. What do I mean by that? Then what is the minimum amount of time to the nearest minute that Jessica spent playing sport? Okay, so we go up here a second and let's figure out what the first line means. If all times were rounded to the nearest hour. Now, what I assume that means here is that maybe she didn't spend exactly 4 hours playing sport, or she didn't spend exactly 1 hour eating. What she did was she maybe have spent maybe, for example, she might have spent 3 hours, maybe 50 minutes playing sport. Okay, and that was rounded up to four. Or she may have spent maybe, we'll say 59 minutes eating, or maybe she spent 3 hours and 1 minute on social media. So they're not exactly accounting for the minutes. That's what I think the first line means. And then it states here, then what is the minimum amount? The minimum now is the important word, minimum amount of time to the nearest minute that Jessica spent playing sport. So we're only focusing here on the sport one here. Okay, so if I go back to this a second. So what we know, so we just type in my parts here. I think this is part B, not part A rather. This is part, let's see, what are we? This is part C. Okay, and we're currently on part D. Right, so what we know here is that we have what we know. I can write down what we know. Sport equals 4 hours. And we do know that this was rounded. Now, think about how you round the numbers, okay? So say, for example, here, if I was dealing with 0. 0.6. Right, if I was told to round this number, okay, to the nearest whole number, what would I do? I would look at this number and say, is it bigger or smaller than what? I'd say if it's bigger and smaller than 5, if it's bigger, I round it up. If it's smaller, I round it down. Okay, so the key thing there, you always ask yourself is it bigger or smaller than 5? In each decimal place, you ask yourself that question. Okay, that's the key thing there about rounding. So presumably, if they rounded to 4, the minimum time, so in other words, it has to be smaller than 4, they rounded up. So what would have happened there was that the minimum amount of time here that they could have done it would be, say, 3.5. Okay, so 3 hours and a half. Okay, what would that be as a fraction? That'd so that'd be 3.5. Okay, so or you could write it as 3 hours. Okay, and what's a half an hour? That'd be 30 minutes. Okay, that's actually kind of a bit of a tricky question there. And I had to look at that myself there twice to try and figure that one out. That is 3 hours and 30 minutes. Okay, that's the answer there for part D. Right, on to the next part here. Explain data or display the data on a line plot. Okay, so how do we work with line plots? Now, you might remember line plots from last year. Okay, I might have to rub some of this off. Yeah, I'm going to rub off the first part there. Okay, right, so line plots. Line plots are another way to represent what we call categorical data. Okay, categorical data, remember, is data that is not a number. Okay, okay, and then the other thing then is in terms of line plots, we're probably going to have to label the, I suppose, the type of data it is on one side and the frequency on the other side. So first thing anyways is we want to draw a line. Okay, so line, this is a line plot. I'm not sure I gave myself enough room there anyway, but I'm going to work a way on this and give you an idea how to do it. So what you do is simply look at your frequencies. So for example, if I look at eating, for example, okay, what I do here on my plot is I put an X here for eating, okay, and I'm going to label that eating. Okay, now I skipped over the first one there because I didn't have enough room. Playing sport. Okay, so playing sport. What you do here, again, these X's should be the same size. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so that would be the next one there, which was we said is playing sport. Okay, so let's write in. playing sport. So in other words, we're basically representing each X represents one of these numbers, okay? And you can do the next one there, which is social media. And again, I want to type in, I want to put in 3 X's, so X, and again, and again. Okay, and that is basically the, what did we say? That was social media. He spends 3 hours on social media a day. That is a lot of time, isn't it? Social media. Right. The key thing here is that the x's should be on the same level. Okay, I'm not going to put in the other 2 values there, but you get the idea. This is how you draw a line plot. Okay. You use this line plot then for to answer the final part then, which well, actually, there's 2 more parts. State one advantage of displaying the data on a line plot rather than a pie chart. Okay, so if we compare here, um, you want to compare these different data on the pie chart. Which do you think is easier to analyze? The pie chart, like this, so him sleeping makes up a big portion of that, or the do you think the line plot is easier to recognize? I actually think, to be honest, it's easier to make, for the purpose of this particular scenario, it's easier to use a line plot to compare how much time she spent looking at the or doing the different activities. I can see here, well, actually, she spent almost as much time looking at social media as she did playing sport. So my answer for that would be the advantage, I would say, is that spending more or comparing the categorical data using a line plot is actually quite easy to see the data if there's a small amount of data. Okay, so it's very easy when you're dealing with small numbers like this, like for example 4 hours, 3 hours, 1 hour. Okay, I would say a disadvantage of it though is that it doesn't work well when you have a large amount of data. Okay, so like if I had to compare, we'll say, geez, if I had to compare 256 versus 49, that you'd spend all day drawing these X's, so it wouldn't be very good then. That would be the circumstance for that. Right, so that is, I've just answered question 5 for you. Right, and your job is going to be to answer question 6. Okay, so you'll have a go at question 6 there for us and see how you get on.